You're listening to another episode of the ABC Music Talk podcast. I've now done a fair few of these, covering a wide range of subjects, many of which have stayed close to the recording side of the music industry. But in this episode, we get to talk about publishing, which is something I often think about as the other side of the coin, and therefore equally as important. But as ever, let me quickly remind you all about the wonderful company that is Rota. Rota is for artists, managers, labels, or anyone in the music industry who needs to create video content for promotion or monetization. Rota makes it fast, easy, and inexpensive to do that all in one place. Head to www.abcmusic.co and click the Rota logo on the homepage to access a 10% off discount for the service. Now, my guest this week is one of the most composed, confident, and accomplished executives in the music business. He is also, in a non-antagonistic way, has contributed to the disruption of the music publishing business. I welcome to the show the CEO and founder of Centric, Chris Meehan. Welcome.
I've never been called an executive before.
Well, but you are. You're a surprisingly sort of composed individual, and I always think that, quality of an executive, isn't it?
Yeah, well, maybe.
So go on then, what other things have you been called? No, I'm kidding. I don't think we should do that. But because we know some of the same people, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. He'll probably call me something other than an executive.
Well, yeah, I think he'll be literally shouting at the speaker now, going, "But I call him this." No. So normally I ask people about their journey into the music industry, but with you, I have a feeling that might read something like, "I had an idea, I called it Centric, and that's the end."
Well, we didn't call it Centric, actually.
Oh, good. I'm glad there's more to it.
It was called One Stop Publishing Shop, which is the worst name ever.
It's descriptive.
And the first website that we put on the internet called One Stop Publishing Shop was brown. So we didn't really have an eye for design or brand at the time.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, it was awful.
That's excellent.
It's awful.
Okay, but so perhaps instead of I've had all these jobs in the music industry and I eventually came up with this idea, tell us about the genesis. I mean, obviously I know the story a little bit, but for the benefit of my listeners.
Well, so we were in university. We went to a music management course and we learned everything about the music business. Apart from publishing, which was quite sketchy, and I didn't think it was necessarily the fault of the lecturers, but it's a thing that...
Was it a business course? Was it kind of focused on that, do you think?
It was called Arts, Music and Entertainment Management at LIPA.
Okay.
So there was contract law and things like that. It was quite broad.
Right.
But it was also really practical, so we learned to be a manager, learned to be a promoter. You didn't have an exam. You'd go and do a show or put a festival on or manage band. So I learned all the things I didn't want to do. And then we were in the city in 2005 when we were getting told the music industry is over, which was really unfortunate for us coming out of university into it.
Who was saying this to you?
Everyone.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I think it was Tony Wilson was doing the publishing panel, and he said, "No one understands what the fuck they do, but go to the bar with them because they're the only ones with money left." So we were like, "Ooh, publishing.
Maybe that's the one for me."
Yeah, well, then we started looking and thinking, well, I had mates that were in publishing deals, and I was asking them what their experience was, and it wasn't ever positive.
Right.
And no one really knew what it was for, or what it meant, or how they were going to earn money. And that's kind of when we thought, well, there must be something in this. If the money's there, and it's about getting it, how do we get it, and what do we get it for?
Yeah, sure. Okay, and that just you just sort of mulled that. Was it just yourself or you with others?
It was myself and there's a guy called Phil Cooper, and a guy called Andy Davidson that was a tech. He's a tech guy. He just had a business that he had lots of software developers left, not doing much. So we kind of all came together and looked at starting something in publishing.
Right.
And we did it over. I mean, there was all sorts of business plans with gold, bronze, silver.
Of course.
But we thought the idea was really good, so let's just focus on that, which is getting songwriters engaged in the world of music publishing and getting paid for things that they were doing.
So that was kind of like the follow-up question I was going to say. So, Chris, publishing, explain it, and sort of just to watch you kind of go. But I mean, ultimately, because the way that I understand it is, you kind of came at this as you were kind of just sort of saying there. I felt at least that you focused on the underserved
Yeah.
There were key features in what you built from a technology point of view that were ultimately very simple. It was like, tell us when you think your music's being used and we'll go and get you the money for it.
But that was the other thing, is that we did it the other way around.
Right.
So we didn't build the technology and then go, what should we do with it? We went, what do people need and what are they missing out on? And the first thing wasn't anything to do with technology, it was the contract. So every songwriter you talk to, I mean, it was funny in Lipper because there was our course which was never do anything without a contract, and then there was the music course which was never sign a contract with any of them fuckers because they're going to try and rob you.
Right.
So when we looked at it, we were like, well, we need to make sure that if we want to engage people with it, that we don't do what the normal contracts are. Yeah. So we looked at an existing one and did the opposite. So one of my mates was in a 28-year deal.
Wow.
Which is where the 28-day came from.
Right.
So we just literally did the polar opposite and then thought, well, how do we make technology serve these writers if they are not scared of the contract? And that was it.
So it's almost like you knew what I was going to ask you next, and as listeners know, I never give my questions over to the people I'm talking to. But can you just quickly kind of cover the different types and sort of like common deals that there are in the music publishing business as a whole? Traditional publishing, SSA, co-pub, admin, sub-pub, etc. Just sort of go through a few of those.
Yeah, I mean, so admin deal is exactly what it is. It's normally quite short term, normally for a period of say 3 years. It's normally a standardised split. It's normally for another business that, or a songwriter that just wants someone to look after them for a period of time. They'll collect the mechanical performance income, other income, print, maybe have some synchronisation options. Is probably the lowest common denominator deal. Then you've got ESA and co-pub, which is a exclusive songwriter agreement, which normally has a term and a product commitment. Normally will be for 3 years, say 3 to 5 years, with a retention period that used to be life of copyright, and now it's anywhere from kind of 7, 12, 15 years. And with the bigger the deals, with the ownership element, is where the advances normally come. So admin deals typically will have a small to no advance, whereas co-pub or ESAs will have advances and all sorts of other things in there.
Right, okay. And single song assignments, are they still a sort of feature of the business?
They are in electronic music, I think less so in other genres, and I think it's becoming less so in electronic. I suppose when a label takes over something in the electronic music world, they'll often do a single song assignment for the record and the publishing.
Yeah.
But I think that's changing a little bit as people are looking at longer term relationships.
I mean, the only even remote publishing job I've ever had in the business was literally it was at a dance label, in fact. So good call on that, and just issuing SSAs all the time. That was kind of the nuts and bolts of that business. So when we first met, I was tasked at the time with trying to figure out a publishing solution for a company called Ingrooves. I've spoken a lot about that in the past. It was a distribution company in its sort of first form. When I came across what you'd done, I really loved what you'd done, and it was perfect for us because we built some technology for people in the music industry on the record side, and we knew that they were often not collecting their publishing business. And so from an admin point of view, you came and you said, I've got this sort of white label, so it's kind of plug and play, and I thought that was really. Are you still doing a lot of that, or is that kind of not?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, we've rebuilt the whole thing. What we wanted to do is whatever. So I suppose companies like Ingrooves at the time are coming to us and saying, "You're doing this for songwriters. Can you do this for us?" And the answer was yes, we could. But what we realised is that the product that we built wasn't really suited for us doing that at scale for a lot of people. So we started in 2014 rebuilding our platform, launched it internally last year, externally this year.
Okay.
And yeah, it's white labelable. You don't need to use Centric. You can use different partners. It's just a full suite publishing neighbouring rights system that allows you to do whatever you want.
So neighbouring rights as well there. It almost feels like it could be another podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's move on. I always try and do my research poorly as normal, but I did look on your website and I realised that you've got these different categories of what your business is today, which is you're the owner of some publishing catalogues now, which we can talk about. Traditional sub-publishing services, direct artist services, this B2B online app Rights Hub. Rights App. Sorry, I wrote that down wrong. Clearly,
Rights Hub is Lee's.
It is. Yeah. Sorry, Lee. Or should I say not? You didn't just copy what Chris was doing. Plug for Rights Hub there. There you go. And sync services. So I mean, you've been really busy. I think since we last kind of had a sort of direct working relationship together.
Yeah.
The publishing catalogs. That when I started to see those come into the news feeds, I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know we've been busy, but what we've done is we built the infrastructure out, which was the most important thing.
Yeah.
And then we built it originally for our 28-day contract, and then we realised that other publishers might want to use it, and record labels might want to use it, distributors might want to use it.
Yeah.
And then we've just found ways of filling the funnel, which is we can put anything through the infrastructure. It could be all the list of deals that you gave, admin, COPA, BSA, whatever it is. We can utilise the resource that we've got. So we've just found different ways of doing it, and it's made us much bigger as a company, but it's also kind of kept the ethos of making sure that we look at individual bits and service them as well as we can.
Yeah, right.
We definitely overstaffed the 28-day deal.
Right.
For the level of support that people were getting from that was definitely more than it was Meehan centric.
Yeah. But I think I didn't pick up on this earlier. You told us a story about somebody who had a 28-year contract, and you just sort of almost tongue in cheek went, well, I'm going to completely reverse that to almost like the nth degree, 28 days. I mean I like stories like that.
Yeah.
I like the fact that that's the sort of cornerstone of where the business came from.
It was a whiteboard with all of the terms of this particular deal. And we literally just flipped them all.
Wow. Well, that takes. I personally think that takes a mind of somebody who hasn't been overly exposed to the business to come up with that kind of concept. I have recent experiences of having built something for an established business, should we say, and the kind of reluctance of, but you can't do that. Almost anything I said was like, but it doesn't work like that. You can't do that. And you're like, it does and it can. You just got to change how you do it. And it just that's why
that was the most frequently asked question when we started it, and we were going around. People would just go, why? And it was like, well, why not?
Yeah. Yeah,
and
right.
You go, why are you going to do that? Why do you not want to own those copyrights? It's well, why do I have to? I don't have to. I can still be a publisher without owning copyrights.
Yeah. I seem to remember the very early sort of Ingru's contracts were very light in terms of term, because Rob, had this kind of attitude of, well, if they don't want to work with us, why make them? Right, that's not a good relationship on any level. Like if you take that out of kind of a sort of contractual professional relationship, you try and force somebody into a relationship they don't want to be in. That's not going to work, is it?
Exactly, and that's what we thought. If we do a good job, why would they leave?
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. I mean, obviously the industry has a bit of a reputation in the past for for these 28-year contracts or whatever, as an example, and it got a bad rep for it. People felt very locked in, and so, it's great to see companies like Centric just go, yeah, but you don't need to do that, do you? Here's an alternative. But as I say, I think there are some other companies that shall remain nameless because it's not fair, who have been quite vocal about how much they're, improving the industry. I like to think that Centric has just done it and not worried about what other people think from the point of view of trying to, force people into, we're geniuses, look what we've done, you've just kind of done it, and people have gone, oh, that's really good. Yeah, can I come and work with you?
Well, that's the point, I suppose, is that, I think, there's people that we work with that spend 90% of the days wondering what other people are doing rather than doing the thing that they should just be doing. So it's like, if you want to go and if you're working with us and you want to go do something else, then we'll see you in a few years. If it doesn't work out, we're always here, and it just makes life easier.
Yeah. It really does. I've come across other examples of that. Like for a record company that say loses an artist to typically a major record label, and it's just this kind of like, yeah, no problem at all. I'm still here. Like if that doesn't work out, like I don't feel bad about this. And I've seen it, where it's not worked out, and they've made the call and they've just gone, hey, so any chance I can come back? And the response is, I never wanted you to leave in the first place.
Yeah.
And so, of course, you can.
We've had so much of that. Like, it's obviously we're 14 years in this
14
month.
years in.
This
Oh my
month,
goodness! How does that feel?
Weird.
A life's work.
Yeah, I know.
I might add, actually, for my listeners, Chris is impossibly young, given that he's got a 14-year-old successful global company. It makes me feel very, very, very inadequate. But
people come back. So over the 14 years, you've had people that have gone, here's the 28 days notice, we're off into this company or this system or this territory, and then they'll have whatever experience, but they come back and one of the worst things that's happened with us is that we've gone, great, okay, well, where are you going? And they go, here, and we go, well, do you want us to offer you a deal or whatever? And they go, no, we'll just stay on the 28-day rule. Yeah. It's fine. And we're like, oh.
Oh, okay.
Well.
That's amazing. So I listed out a bunch of things that you're already kind of doing. I mean, is there anything else that you're sort of thinking about where Centric can kind of become useful? Maybe it's not publishing. Maybe we've mentioned neighbouring rights already as a sort of an associated aspect to collections, if you like. Different, of course, listeners. I should probably do a neighbouring rights. In fact, I will do a neighbouring rights podcast. I think that's important.
Our neighbouring rights story is very different, I think, to what you'd normally expect, because we did it because it was the why thing. Mm-hmm. So why can't we get this artist on the TV when we've registered our copyrights and like the master rights aren't registered? So we set up a neighbouring rights division to register the song so that Channel 4 would use the piece of music on Love Island. Yeah. And that was it.
Yeah, exactly, to make something else possible.
Yeah,
totally. Because I mean the industry is terrible at getting in its own way. By creating a set of rules for one purpose that then doesn't work in another situation. Classic. So is there anything that you're kind of thinking about at the moment? Maybe you don't want to say, which is also fine.
No, I suppose really the first 10 years of the company, we definitely got kind of like mission creep, looking at, well, maybe we should get into this, or maybe we should do that. Like the weirdest one is that we did a brand division. Yeah. And we thought, well, people want to use our artists or whatever. And then we pitched to a brand the idea of an unknown artist doing a pop-up tea shop, which ended up going through about 6 months of reworking, and then we ended up making a TV advert with Nigella Lawson in a stately home in the Cotswolds.
Goodness.
Which was definite mission creep. So I think what we've done is go, we're not supposed to do this. Let's just focus on the things that we are good at and just be really good at them. So publishing, sync, neighbouring rights and technology to support them all is all we're thinking about.
All right, okay, that's interesting, because I mean there's always so much talk about so-called full stack companies and being across every vertical and other sort of dimensions, and I'm sure it must be incredibly sort of enticing to perhaps just sort of open up as, hey, we're a distributor now, or we're a record company now, or just kind of being any other part of associated within the music industry sort of spectrum.
But there's people that wake up every morning and that's their sole focus.
Right.
So I think you'd be doing a disservice to people if you decided that you can just do a bit of everything, because it doesn't work. We like working with people that is their sole focus, and we can do our sole focus, and the two things together make a great service.
Yeah, I mean, I think also from a competition point of view, it doesn't always work out so well, does it? Like if you're like, bring your songwriters in, which I know are also recording artists, come and meet us, we're a publisher, and then you realise that there's a recording label attached to this company, and you know potentially that you might sort of lose them that way. So you'd alienate probably a lot of your customers by sort of doing the same things that they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we've never built our own sync platform.
Right.
So we've always used different sync platforms that are third party. We have software developers sat in the office that could build one, but we're never going to be thinking about what people want for sync, because it's not what we do.
Yeah.
So we'll always kind of admit when we think it's better not to do something and just stay focused. And I think that from going from startup to kind of where we are now is definitely the thing that you need to have, which is just focus on what you're good at and just be really good at it.
Yes, that's sage advice, sort of stay in your lane kind of thing, isn't it, a little bit? Of course, I think what another benefit of being sort of hyper-focused on sort of one particular area is, of course, as things change in the industry, you're then able to react in a much more sort of fluid way, because you know the parameters of how you need to approach that new problem. Right.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about some of those in a minute.
Okay.
So I want to talk about publishing just in general, just because I'm not sure if I explained, this podcast is mainly for people coming into the music industry or thinking about coming into it or just made a start. Although, of course, I've been amazed at how many people who have had long careers in the music industry sort of get in touch and go, really good. I was like, I had no idea, why would you be listening to this? I thought you knew all this stuff, but of course I'm learning a lot as I'm doing it. Anyway, my entry point to the industry, I was in a band, and I, through a convoluted story of connections, I was 16 at the time, I got a publishing deal. Obviously, now I've learned not for the band, for the songwriter.
Yep.
But at the time, it felt like a record deal. And because what it was, I had somebody from a publisher come down actually to my house, listen to the band play, and he was obviously assessing the viability of the songs that had been written. Didn't know that at the time. Thought we were, going to get, as I say, like a record deal. And he put us in a professional recording studio. And for me, that was the first time I kind of came across the music industry. So from a publishing point of view, but ultimately what this person was doing at this company was they were kind of helping develop the act, if you like, right, from a songwriting point of view, but ultimately they were also, I guess, owners of the masters that we created, right, because they paid for them.
Yeah.
I think for most people, when they think about like making a start as a musician, they're thinking, all right, I've got to go to a record company, I've got to go find an A&R person to kind of nurture me and develop me and kind of get me the deal, and so that there's some money to play with in terms of promotion and the rest of it. Is it still commonplace in the publishing world for it to kind of happen the way around it did for me? Not that we ever went on and were successful, by the way. That was the sort of final nail in the coffin, I believe. Sort of putting us up against our peers.
No, it definitely does happen. Yeah, I mean, there's we work with so many artists. Obviously, with the way that we started and the thing that I suppose made us famous with the 28-day thing.
Yeah. And
you see stuff on there where you see some really great stuff that no one else is visible to yet, or that no record label's interested, or there's not the management company. So we do a lot of it. We do a lot of educational stuff. We do a songwriter accelerator program, which is come in, meet industry professionals, do some writing sessions. We did a blog which was ask the industry what you do with £1,000, and like you get PR people, you get digital people, you get whatever it was. So we thought, well, why don't we start giving out a few £1,000 at a time and take this advice on board, and there you go, let's take it forward. But then like everyone who loves music loves finding something and loves giving advice to it, and producers and people in studios, especially in Liverpool, the community that we're in, right. Everyone's always helping someone. The great thing about Liverpool is that when everyone stays there, kind of, you've got like James Skelly nurturing artists that are coming up and putting them out on his label and publishing it. So it's really good.
I think it's worth mentioning. I mean, this whole Liverpool thing. I mean, because I think this is obviously a UK thing. Sorry for my international listeners. I actually do have international listeners from all over the world. It's kind of bonkers, but certainly in the UK, London is typically where the music industry exists. I mean, we are actually sitting in the London office of Centric at the moment, but you are proud Liverpudlian, and of course that's where the company started. And I think it's worth saying that if you are somebody who lives in Birmingham or Scotland or wherever, you don't have to be in London. You can start a company and make it a global success from anywhere.
No, 100%. Yeah, I mean, the first thing we did before we even incorporated the company was bought an 0207 phone number.
Which is okay.
Because we just thought, like, we can be here, but we kind of might have to look like we're down there, just in case people are like, hang on a minute, not that publishing company.
That's pretty funny.
But no, I mean, it's so refreshing to not have to be in London for many reasons, and I think that all of our staff get the benefit of not having to rent or buy houses in London, whatever. And we are here, but the main operation is up in Liverpool, and that's where we'll stay.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there is
It's Liverpool, not Liverpool Street, because that often happens.
Oh goodness!
When we get sent physical post, it often says Liverpool Street.
Wow. That's somewhere else entirely. Many trains pass through there, I believe. Right, good. I've totally lost the train of thought that I was on. This is a good one. What is the relationship like between publishers and collection societies? In fact, could you just, again, for the benefit of the listeners, just kind of walk through what collection societies mean to you, or what they are?
Yeah, I mean, so we work with with lots and lots of societies around the world, and our relationship with them is for them to represent our rights in a particular market.
Okay.
So our relationship with them is always good because it has to be. We have to have a relationship. We have copyrights that we register with them, and we work with them to make sure that we get paid for things that happen in that territory. And I think it's got a lot better than it used to be. I think it's very challenging, so we have to work together because the industry and the way that we collect money now is different to it was in 2006 to 2010 to 15 to 20.
What are some of the key differences that you've seen happen?
The volume of data is just completely transformed and changed the way that, and the way that you license. It used to be you sell a CD, there's a dealer price, it's a percentage of the dealer price, and if you're like huge, you're going to sell 1 million. Now you could be getting 1 billion streams a month.
Yeah, right.
So it's just like, for fractions of pennies all around the world that you have no idea really where it's coming from, with paid free tiers, student family plans.
And so, and in terms of this sort of relationship with the collection societies, that feature that I talked about at the beginning, where you were essentially taking in extra information, we're not going to call it data, it wasn't data, it was information, and you were giving it to the collection societies, because my understanding, at least, whenever I've spoken to people at the societies, they genuinely want help trying to identify where some of this money should go.
Yep.
Because of the nature of the way like venues are licensed and all the rest of it. It's kind of, it's not specific. It's not a pre-roll ad or something that's caused a revenue strand for something identifiable.
Yeah.
Right? So have you felt like that they've liked having a new entrant come into the marketplace with some better ideas and some more enthusiasm for what they're doing?
I don't know.
Or have you found they've been a bit sort of wary of this young upstart from Liverpool? Not
mixed, but we've always, like, the power of the relationship is the key, really. So I remember, why are you doing this? Was the thing. Why are you not doing like what everyone else does? Was always the thing. And then as we've joined other territories and we've gone out to Germany or we've gone out to France, and we pop up and go, hey, we're Centric, this is what we do, we're going to join you, and we need to work together. It's always a little bit different. It's not so much now, because I think everything's changed, but it was definitely a bit strange at first.
Yeah.
But if we're good at our job, we help the society, because we give them the information that they can then use to claim money or pay it out. So we kind of want
which
to be
looks
the best.
good in all those press releases that they make, where they say we've paid out X amount this year. It's wonderful.
No, so we need to kind of be best friends for it to work.
I mean, that's how I would say. I was just curious as to whether that was actually the reality or not.
It can be frustrating, and I remember getting told off for something that I said ages ago, but I do think it's relevant in that if we got on the Eurostar now, and we went to France, and then we went to Holland, and then we came back, we would get a bill next month for our phone usage abroad.
Yep.
And I don't know why it should be any different with streams, because it's not that it's technically not possible. So technically it's possible to be paid a lot quicker than everyone gets paid, but I understand all the reasons why it takes more time and that things are more complicated, but we like seeing that it's shifting towards quicker payments.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess that is a good example of obviously a fairly modern industry, mobile phones, within reason, where it's a network. I mean, it's all interconnected, and data passes very quickly between everyone that's involved in that cycle.
But when we do like big data stuff in the music industry, we work with Imperial College London and their big data team,
right?
And they laughed at us. Because they were like, this isn't big data.
Yeah, right.
This is tiny. And we're going, but man, we've got billions of streams these days. We never used to have that. And they go, this is tiny.
We do make a lot of it, don't we? Yeah, and it's funny because again, hopefully I'm not betraying any confidence, but I've grown up around the digital consumption of music for consumers, fans of music, and almost all of the DSPs, struggle with this kind of, I've got to figure out how to send you, all these lines of data, because as you mentioned earlier, all the different countries, perhaps different price points because they're running promos, or they have different price points for different countries because it's a different economic situation for the people there, which creates a lot of data. And it's almost like these systems were built thinking that wasn't going to happen.
Oh, 100% is the reason. It's like, and when you get a DSP country, you go, you the guys that own the copyright, and you go, yeah. And they go, great, can we do a deal with you for the world? And you go, no, because we've got this society that looks after us in this country, and then this sub-publisher in this country, and then a mate that Midham's been doing some stuff for us in Brazil, but only on a 1-year basis. So it's like, we didn't really make it easy for anyone.
No, that's true. I'm just sort of staying on that for a second. I mean, certainly the international aspect of it. There's been a lot of big changes within the collection societies in terms of how they exist. You know, it used to be kind of territory by territory, and I think we just essentially, as an industry, introduced competition. Now you've got these sort of pan-European societies and all the rest of it. You just quickly explained a little about what's gone on there.
Yeah, I mean, so you as a publisher, you know, as a writer, it's probably not recommended, but as a publisher, you can withdraw rights and put them all with one society. Mm-hmm. I think the majors used to do a lot more of it, but the independents are all doing it now, which is great. And I suppose the game is to reduce the amount of friction and loss that might occur in a chain if you've got a DSP. So the idea that you can go to a DSP, the DSP can give one invoice for 27 territories, for example, is great. So we've centralised all of our digital collection outside of North America with one society for the whole world.
Right, interesting.
And it just means that we get paid quicker, there's less loss, there's less friction, there's less problem points, and it just means we get paid more quicker.
It's interesting. I remember sitting down with somebody from one of the largest DSPs on the planet, a fruit and veg related one, fruit mainly, and they were exasperated because they were trying to license the publishing rights, and it was at the point where it had just changed, and they were like, we used to know because we used to go to each country and do a deal for the country, and now we can't. Mm-hmm. And now we've got and of course, something we should get to in a second. In fact, we'll talk about it now if you want. I mean, publishing is different from the recording side because many publishers can all own a piece of a single song, and that's where things get a little bit sort of complicated, or maybe not, right? But in terms of like breaking that down territorially, right?
Well, I suppose
does it matter?
Many people can have a piece, and many writers and many publishers can own a composition, and a composition can have many recordings.
Yeah.
So one of our compositions that we have has 2,083 commercially released recordings on Spotify.
Oh my goodness!
So before
run those numbers again, just real quick.
One song has 2,083 versions of it on Spotify.
Wow.
It's a famous Christmas song.
Understood.
But there's, songs that, it became really popular, didn't it? When I remember there's a band called Boyce Avenue, I think, that we were on TuneCore, that just used to release cover albums of songs. So they do like the acoustic cover of this song. Yeah. And they were selling out like 3,000-5,000 capacity venues, but just constantly creating new copyright. And who's monitoring this? Who's policing this? Who's saying, well, that song on that release is this writer, that's this publisher for this territory, but this publisher for this territory? It's just, it's a mess.
Yeah.
And it all happened overnight.
Yeah, it did.
And because everyone could just be their own record label and distribute everything, you had more music going into the DSPs than ever.
Yeah.
So it just, you can see why it's complicated and difficult.
Absolutely.
But it's getting easier because the access to data or information is greater than it ever was. So with companies like Centric, we use lots of third parties, lots of DSPs, lots of ticket sites to find out information on our artists or writers that are composers.
Yeah.
And that just means that we know what to look out for.
Yeah, no, it was, absolutely. That's really interesting. I mean, one of the sort of things I was trying to do with Ingri's, which was where we had, this information coming from the DSPs on streams or downloads. Primarily, we were mostly a digital distribution company at the time, and I thought we could maybe use some of that information to kind of not do an audit. That's too strong a concept, but at least we had some knowledge that we could apply to when we received publishing information, right? I mean, the dates are a little bit off and all the rest of it because of the speed of collections that we briefly touched on there, and we'll talk about in a second. But it feels like the whole industry could do a lot better. So in terms of like relationships with publishers, I mean, what's that like these days? Because obviously, again, I sort of began this with Centric is one of the companies that sort of upset the apple cart a little bit. I mean, how do people perceive you, like the old guard and all the rest of it?
I don't
I
don't spend enough time thinking about it. I mean,
and I guess you don't need a dialogue with them necessarily.
We'll own things together, or we'll represent things together, and everyone kind of gets on and works. But I think just focus on, I haven't got time to see my wife. Never mind think about what someone else is thinking about. So it's like, people can, as long as we're doing a good job and we're doing what we say we're going to do, that's all we focus on.
Okay.
And it's strange. I mean, when we set up in 2006, there was a lot more people in the market than there is now, but there's been that much consolidation and acquisition that like, you kind of look around and go, where's everyone gone?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, that is, it has been one of those, one part of the industry that has consolidated massively. I mean, some of the checks that are flying around are insane.
They're ridiculous.
Insane.
Yeah.
And I guess, I know that we talked about you owning some catalogues at the moment, and presumably, though, you're not getting too attached to the idea of I've got to buy that because in case somebody else buys it.
No.
Yeah.
We buy it if we like it and it's the right price and we think we can do something with it.
Yeah, it's such a luxury. I guess that's maybe just to do with how the company's configured, not too much downward pressure to kind of grow and all the rest of it, right?
No, if we like something and everyone likes it and we think we could do a good job, and we think we could help improve things for the writers, then we'll do it. Yeah. If not, we're not going to overpay for stuff just because someone else won't get it.
Yeah, got it. So let's talk about some of what are like the big challenges today for music publishing. We talked about data collection, reporting speed. What about some of like the new exploitation methods, TikTok and IG and all the rest of the podcasts even?
Well, in honesty, I think that we're in the period where no one, including those services, really knows how it's going to work out. Mm-hmm. So I think everyone's just starting to say, hey, like, here's some money, let's work on figuring out how we're going to make this work in the long run. I don't think that we're far enough in yet to know whether it's working well or not. Again, I think the biggest issue is going to be the transfer of information between the publishers and the other people, because it's so much information. Or broadcast monitoring's got to be the thing that detects the usage in a video, and it's just not there yet.
Yeah.
So as ever, these things pop up and we're way behind and we have to figure it out quickly.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, it's so I sort of got loosely involved with some stuff with Facebook. And doing some licensing on the record side for Facebook and Instagram, and I know that the pain around publishing and getting the clearances was just, especially when you get to some of those markets where they're not as mature, they haven't even figured it out themselves, and you're sort of turning up going, I know you haven't got the basics down, but here's something else that's slightly more convoluted and complicated. Can we get a license?
I mean, you can imagine. I would hate to be. I feel sorry for the PROs in a way, because they're having to explain and enforce something that no one knows anything about, and they see it as a blocker. You're stopping me from building my $1 billion company. Yeah. Who are you to do this? And it's like,
I did an interview with Cliff Flewitt and we touched on this a lot in terms of how innovation is hard in the music industry because of this concept around licensing. I mean, it's
and people have been burnt in the past, so there's a real reluctance to.
Absolutely.
If you answered the phone and did everything that anyone asked you to, it's just so difficult. It's like, with blockchain and things like that now that are coming, people say blockchain is the answer. I'm kind of going, we're still like, our software developers look at me like I'm stupid when I say we're going to create a CWR file, which is getting really technical, but it's a fixed length text file,
right?
And that is how we send song information all around the world. It's the technology from the 1980s.
Yeah. But that's what's being used.
That's what's being used, because that's the standard that everyone kind of uses and goes, this is great. So innovation kind of is also stifled. It's like blockchain. When we send our songs to blockchain, are they going to send it to the South Korean society? No, because they don't accept it. So it's like...
See, I kind of wonder whether, like something you said earlier, sort of made me think about this. Like where you've got these companies and they've had some sort of weird, wonderful idea, and they're trying to make it work. I mean, I said on the Cliff interview, I've sat across countless companies that have all gone, I've had this great idea, and they're normally talking to me because they want access to music, because I'm normally at a company that represents it. And there's normally a point where I just sort of go, you're using music, have you asked permission? And they sort of look at me and they just go, no, don't worry, they'll love it. They'll want, don't worry, it's promotion, it's marketing, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, that may well be true, but you've still got to go and ask permission.
Yeah.
And it's...
Plus, they come in and they go, do you know what the number one problem in the music industry is? And you go, how long have you been in the music industry? Well, I've never, but I've just looked at the outside and I've built a tech company in this thing. And you go, we don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
of course it's stupid what we do, but we all know. Yeah. It's not like we need a saviour.
Well, there's many historical reasons as to why it kind of has been sort of pieced together over time, right? And that's kind of what you were saying earlier about we don't know how to solve some of these problems, but eventually we will. But I would love for it to be quicker and easier, I have to say.
Me and every songwriter.
I was going to say, you, me and everyone else.
Because there's the thing that, like, when someone doesn't understand something, they take a view on they're always going to take a bad view because they don't understand it. Yeah. And it's always going to be negative. Like, I still have people saying to me now that Spotify's ripping artist stuff. Oh, and it's just like, it fucking isn't.
Yeah.
Like, it really is not. Like, this is the amount of money that is coming back. This is how you get paid. And then when you show people 50% to mechanical, do you know what that is? No. Have you got an administrator? No. Well, I'm a member of the PRS. Well, they don't collect mechanical, so there's 50% that you're not getting, and that's your fault. Then the other 25% goes to the publisher, 25% to the writer. Have you got that? And then when you add them all up, and you go, that's actually the amount of money that you got for your streams, people go, oh, that's more than I thought.
Yeah, no, it's again, this is sort of touching on some of the stuff that Cliff and I were talking about. Sort of, I had the Wikipedia definition of what publishing is, which is, and Wikipedia is my friend normally, shout out to Wikipedia, and it says, what publishing is, ensuring the songwriters and composers receive payment when their compositions are used commercially. I mean, that's it, right? That's it.
It's pretty broad.
It's pretty broad, but ultimately that's what it is, right? Yeah. And I think that's the bit where some of those like new tech innovation, new ideas, new promotional vehicles, whatever it is that these people have come up with, they look at it as something as simple as that, but they always approach it with the attitude of, well, I don't need to understand your old antiquated ways. I'm going to just do it over here, and it's all just going to function and work properly. It's like, but how did you ever think that was going to happen?
I like that definition. It's good, so I'm going to use that one. So I get like, so what do you do? Music publishing? Oh, like, do you like put music on iTunes? No. That's just what, so you like magazines? No. Keep going.
But I mean, the word publishing is so unfortunate in the sense of how it's used elsewhere. And quite, I guess, like publicly, people understand what a book publisher is, like, because that just seems to be a bit more mainstream, like in terms of sort of just culture in general. But anyway, so I'm getting towards the end because this isn't my area and I don't have as much knowledge of it as you do. But I mean, is there anything else that you think that we should sort of talk about and cover here, or is there anything sort of like closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts are honestly for songwriters. It's like the amount of people, little and large, that you come across that have not thought about publishing, which is a good percentage of your income. It's like, do not release something on iTunes or Spotify if you have not registered your song, because you are going to lose money.
Right.
And it's like, we constantly see writers who they are the artist and they will go and put something out and they go, we've got 25 million streams on this song, and you go, have you registered it? And they say no, and that is a lot of money they're leaving on the table. So I think taking it really seriously, and there are enough options out there now aside from Centric to not have an excuse for not engaging with it. I think it's really important that you don't leave the money on the table.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really good material out there now. I mean, even when I was just researching this podcast, it was surprising to me, because of course I sadly I'm a bit older than you, Chris, and I kind of don't really predate the internet, but I predate normal use of the internet.
Yeah.
So I remember when I was trying to research music publishing as a 16-year-old in a band, because I was like, what the hell is this? Like, I don't understand like what I'm getting myself into. It was like kind of go to the library and kind of things like that. It was very, very difficult, and of course no one had thought about making something that was kind of usable. So we had somebody come in. I think the room needs to be given to somebody else, so we'll wrap it up in a second. But it's like there is some really good information available now. Some great courses and stuff. Is there anything that Centric are doing from that point of view? Obviously, the website's good.
Lots of blogs, lots of engagement, lots of events. Songwriter Accelerator program, like I mentioned. Simon Pershouse does a wonderful What the Fuck is Publishing panel discussion at lots of the conferences. So yeah, and we maybe a bad idea, but there's a phone number on our website. If anyone's got any questions, just call it.
Yeah,
and there's a team on hand to help you.
No, very
like
good.
No question is not worth asking.
What's the website?
Centricmusic.com.
Centricmusic.com. Wonderful. Okay, right, we will wrap up because we'll get this room back to somebody else. So to my listeners, thank you for listening. I welcome all feedback, comments and suggestions for future shows. My Twitter handle is @AlexBranson. If I'm not following you already, put podcast DM in a message and I will follow you back. We can have a dialogue, or go to the website www.abcmusic.co, where you'll find a contacts page with an email address on. Drop me a line. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much.